and welcome to the Blindfold Chess Podcast.
Today, we are looking at a sometimes overlooked player in chess history, an individual who is rumored to have learned 14 languages, founded a chess magazine, has an opening named after him, and someone who competed in the first World Chess Championship, Johannes Zukertort. He was born in 1842 in modern-day Poland, but at the time was part of the Russian Empire. Due to religious reasons, they emigrated to Prussia. At the age of 19, he first learned how to play chess. Like any beginner, though, he struggled. In his first tournament, he was given queen odds in every game and lost every game. He started to study chess, befriending the leading German player of the time, Adolf Andersson. In 1865, he graduated from the University of Breslau in medicine, and as a member of the medical corps of the Prussian army, he saw service during the 1866 Austro-Prussian War and again during the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 and 1871. During combat, he was twice wounded and once left for dead on the battlefield. He was decorated with the Orders of the Red Eagle and the Iron Cross. In 1871, Zukertort defeated Adolf Andersson in a formal match 5-2. In London, the members of the St. George's Chess Club heard of Zukertort's victory and offered money for him to come play against the unofficial world champion Wilhelm Steinitz. Steinitz had been living in London for 10 years by this point and was dominating everyone. By accepting this invitation, Zukertort had sparked a rivalry with Steinitz that would last for years. During the first match between Steinitz and Zukertort in 1875, Steinitz crushed him 7-1. But that did not deter Zukertort. 2 years later, he came in first at the German Championship. In 1878, we saw success for our rising star. He played at the Paris World Expo, an 11-round double round-robin tournament. This was considered the first Intercontinental tournament, as there were players from the United States, making it 7 countries represented out of 12 players. The tournament ended in a tie with Simon Winawer, who the Winawer variation of the French opening and the Ruy Lopez are named after, and Zukertort. Both had 16.5 out of 22, and the two played a 2-game playoff where Zukertort came out the winner. He took home a 1,000 franc prize and was given 2 Sèvres vases from the President of France. 3 days after the tournament, he pawned those 2 vases for 5,800 francs, which was about half of the value of the vases. After Zukertort's win, people began saying that Zukertort should be titled the world champion, since Steinitz did not play in that tournament, but was instead a reporter. In early 1879, while on a chess tour in Dublin, Zukertort played a 12-person blindfolded simul, where he plays 12 players at once without looking at the board. He finished with 8 wins, 1 loss, and 3 draws. One of the opponents that he defeated was Lord Randolph Churchill, who was the father of Winston Churchill. By playing 12 players at once, he broke the record of playing 4 players at once set by Steinitz 1 week earlier. Zukertort also founded the Chess Monthly, a magazine with Leopold Hofer, which entered direct competition with the field that Steinitz had been writing and publishing. His former coach, Adolf Andersson, also passed away in 1875, leaving more people to think that Zukertort was the best player, or at least second best in the world behind Steinitz. In 1880, he defeated the French champion Samuel Rosenthal 7-1. The following year, he defeated English champion Joseph Blackburn 9.5 to 4.5. After the match between Zukertort and Blackburn, both Zukertort and Steinitz wrote about the games in their respective magazines sent out to their respective audiences, where they were also taking jabs at each other's analysis of the games. Zukertort, as a whole, represented the romantic style of chess, while Steinitz was representing a more scientific approach, a style that we would probably call positional play. The various articles and analysis written would antagonize each other beyond just general strategy and would morph into personal insult territory. This animosity would later be named the Ink War. In 1882, Zukertort played in the Vienna tournament, one of the strongest tournaments in history. Our current metrics show that 9 of the top 10 players in the world participated. It was an 18-person, double round-robin tournament, so 34 rounds in total. Steinitz and Winnower tied for first with 24, James Mason of Ireland came in third with 23, and Zukertort came in fourth with 22.5 out of 34. The next year in London, there was a 14-player double round-robin tournament, so 26 games. A rumored story from the tournament banquet, the club's president proposed a toast to the best chess player in the world, to which both Steinitz and Zukertort stood up at the same time. In the first 23 rounds of that London tournament, Zukertort scored 22 points, winning the tournament with 3 rounds to go. He finished the tournament with 22 out of 26. Steinitz came in second with 19 out of 26. A day after the tournament, Steinitz challenged Zukertort to a one-on-one match in the United States, where the winner would be crowned the champion of the world. In 1886, everything was organized. The prize fund was 400 British pounds per player, which is about 2,000 American dollars, which is about $67,000 today, which was fronted by both players prior to the match. This was about all of the money both players had, which meant that they were both staking their entire life savings on one match. The winner would be the first to 10 wins. The first 5 games were to be played in New York City, the next 4 in St. Louis, and the rest would be in New Orleans. The time control was 30 moves in 2 hours, followed by 15 moves for each subsequent hour. This match saw the contradictory styles of the 2 players meet on the world stage. Zukertort started off strong, winning 4 of the first 5 games. The match then moved to St. Louis, where Steinitz picked up 3.5 of the 4 games. They then went down to New Orleans, where Zukertort is quoted as saying he was living on his wits, as he was physically fatigued and approaching a mental breakdown. Meanwhile, Steinitz had a, quote, bottomless pit of mental stamina, end quote. In New Orleans, Steinitz picked up 6 wins in 11 games to become the world champion by a score of 10-5. After that loss, Zukertort's health suffered immensely. While in New Orleans, he caught malaria. He also developed heart disease, kidney problems, and arterial sclerosis. On top of that, he was broke from losing the match. He tried to continue to play, since that was his main source of livelihood, but his quality of play suffered greatly. He finished 7th at the London tournament in 1886, 15th at the Frankfurt tournament in 1887, and 7th in London in 1888. And after playing a game at Simpson's Divan, a popular chess location in London, he suffered a stroke and died at the age of 45. A relatively short career for quite a large impact on the community. He went from learning how to play chess at the age of 19 to participating in the World Championship at 43. His legacy on the game is still felt today, as he has 2 popular openings named after him: the Zukertort Gambit of Knight f3, d5, e4, and the Zukertort Kali system. For our game this week, however, we are traveling to the early part of his career, before the World Championship, before the Ink War, and before training with Andersson. We are going to 1869. John William Schulten versus Johannes Zukertort. Now, if we're ready, let's begin.
1. Pawn to e4. Pawn to e5. 2. Pawn to f4. Pawn e captures f4.
After 2 moves, you can tell that we are in the Romantic era of chess. We have a King's Gambit accepted, so the idea is rapid development and throw everything at the opposing king, regardless of what your own king's health looks like.
3. Bishop c4. Pawn to d5. 4. Pawn e captures d5. Queen h4 check. 5. King f1. Bishop d6.
Believe it or not, this type of opening is still played today. Played is like in the loosest sense of the word. In the database that I'm looking at, Ivana Shuk won this opening with black in 2014. Judith Polgar won this position with white in 2011. And then we have Alexei Shirov, who drew this position in 1997. So even back in 1869, we're still seeing that today.
6. Pawn to d4. Knight e7. 7. Bishop b3. Pawn to g5. 8. Pawn to c4. Pawn to b6. 9. Knight f3. Queen h5. 10. Queen e1. Bishop f5. 11. Knight e5.
Black is trying to be aggressive with the move bishop to f5. However, white is trying to be counter-aggressive as well as trying to do a little bit of defense with the move knight to e5. Can you see what white is trying to accomplish with that move? For one, it advances the knight closer to the center of the board. It also defends the d3 square that the bishop on f5 is trying to target, and it is also allowing white to try to recapture that knight with the queen on e1 if black were to play bishop captures on e5. White would then have a queen on e5 targeting the loose rook on h8 and the pawn on c7.
Knight d7. 12. Bishop a4. Castle queenside. 13. Knight c6. Knight captures c6. 14. Pawn d captures c6. Knight c5.
In this position, black had the option to move the knight to one of 3 different squares that were not attacked by one of white's pieces. So why would black choose to play knight to c5, willing to sacrifice it? Again, it is an active defense type of idea. So black, by playing knight to c5, is targeting the loose bishop that is on a4. Black is also hoping that white were to play pawn captures on c5, so then they can play bishop to d3 check, force the king over to g1, and then play bishop captures on c5 with check. White would cover bishop to e3, black would play bishop captures on e3 check, and the only legal move remaining is queen captures on e3, and with that, black would be up a queen. So the idea is to sacrifice a piece in order to win white's queen.
15. Bishop d1. Bishop d3 check. 16. King g1. Rook h to e8. 17. Queen d2.
Black's queen has been under attack for the last couple of moves from the bishop that is on d1. Now black is feeling like he has to move the queen. If you were in black's position, where would you want to move her?
Queen h4.
The move queen to h4 puts a lot of pressure on the white position, so black is threatening rook to e1 check, with the only legal move being queen captures on e1, followed up with black playing queen captures on e1 checkmate. So white has to deal with that checkmate threat immediately.
18. Pawn to g3. Pawn f captures g3. 19. King g2. Bishop e4 check. 20. Bishop f3. Bishop captures f3 check. 21. King captures f3. Queen e4 checkmate. Black is victorious.
Just absolute chaos on the board. We have 21 moves, where white's queenside pieces never moved. 20% of white's moves were king moves. The checkmate happened on f3, which is white's furthest advanced piece. I know this isn't perfect or clean chess, but it is definitely exciting. A strong chess player whose health took him too soon, Zukertort rose to the peak of chess, won major chess tournaments against incredibly talented players, and ignited a spark through his writing that caused the formal creation of the World Championship cycle. We don't want his name to slip through the cracks of chess history, so I hope you learned something in our episode today. But that is all that we have for this week. Tune in next time, where we will continue to work on our blindfold skills and look at another game of the Masters.